Mars, a world that humanity has long dreamed of reaching. In our solar system, it's the only planet besides Earth that has an atmosphere. This is crucial because most planets in our solar system don't even have a solid surface to stand on. Jupiter, along with Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are all gas giants, shrouded in dense gases where storms have been swirling for millions of years. On the other hand, planets like Mercury and Venus are covered in lava plains with no solid rock to be found. One step there would be your last. In a solar system with such extreme conditions, Mars appears like a miracle. For millions of years, humanity believed that this Earth, this sky, the stars, and the sun were the entire universe. There was nothing else. At times, this world felt like a cage, and people still believe that the only escape is death. This feeling is born from the hardships of life on Earth. Imagine living alone in a forest, fighting off the fear of death, hunting through the pangs of hunger. If you stopped hunting, you would die. These are the reasons this world sometimes felt like a prison. And yet, the ground beneath our feet, the sky above, the sun, the stars at night, they never change. They are constant. It all looks like a masterpiece painted by an artist, and man never imagined that countless worlds existed beyond it. In fact, it took us millions of years just to understand that our Earth revolves around the sun. We don't know for how many millions of years humans have existed, but based on the evidence, we have found the bones of a human who lived 430,000 years ago. We can't even imagine for how many more millions of years before that man was alive. Just thinking about it is amazing, because we have only been recording time for about 2,000 years. We learn about the 5,000-year-old Indus Valley, Mesopotamian, and Egyptian civilizations, and we assume that is our foundation. But humans lived 430,000 years ago too. Yet the first traces of civilization we've found are only 5,000 years old. So why didn't civilization emerge in the 425,000 years in between? Why didn't they develop? What happened in that vast expanse of time remains a mystery. Throughout these millions of years, man lived alone, without even the thought that planets revolve around the stars in the sky. Yet he used those same stars as a compass for his sea voyages. That's why, no matter where he went, he was convinced there was nothing else in the universe but this Earth. After living for so long without even knowing another world could exist, we were astonished when we finally discovered one. So how would it feel to see what that alien world looks like? How would it feel to send the robots we built there? That would be the true foundation for saying that humanity has fully entered the space age. How many people know that on the planet Mars, which shines like a star in the night sky, a 6-wheeled rover is traveling right now? Not only that, but 99% of people on Earth still don't know that there is also a small helicopter there. When we can control a rover with our fingertips on a planet that takes 9 months to reach, and it shows us the wonders of Mars, everything we see is astonishing. Because what we are seeing is not Earth. The soil we see is not from Earth. When the very idea of another world was just a fantasy, everything you see on another world seems strange. In this video, we will talk about why NASA went to that strange world and what the Perseverance Rover saw there. The Perseverance Rover, built after years of hard work by NASA, began its journey from Earth on July 30th, 2020, and landed on Mars on February 18th, 2021. It traveled for about 7 months to get there. The landing went as planned, but it left behind a mess on Mars. This parachute you see here, this is all debris from our rover's landing. This single event is enough to prove that man has set foot there. The rover took this photo as soon as it landed, in a way that even aliens would recognize that someone has landed on Mars. After that, commands were sent from Earth to test whether all the equipment on the rover was working correctly. As hoped, the rover had traveled and landed on Mars without any damage. From there, it began to show us the Martian surface with its high-quality camera. Moving slowly forward, it showed us the surface of Mars for about 6 months. Then, on September 1st, 2021, it chose the right place to collect its very first sample. If you look closely at this area, it holds many secrets. The rocks you see here are 3.5 billion years old and were once at the bottom of a body of water. Even before that, these were rocks that had been carried here by a flow of water. Right next to them, there is another type of rock on the Martian soil. These rocks are part of the native soil, so there is a big difference between them and the black rocks you see. This is the very reason why the rover landed here on Mars. NASA decided to land here based on these rocks, which indicate that water once flowed in this area. If there was water on Mars 3.5 billion years ago, we don't know what the conditions were like. The rover could have landed anywhere on Mars, but there is a strong reason why we sent it to this specific location. Until a few years ago, we believed that besides humans and animals, there were no other creatures on this Earth. Man has survived on this Earth since time immemorial. For hundreds of years, people believed that God created man first when the Earth became habitable. At one time, we believed that the Earth was only the world of humans. But when we learned that giant creatures called dinosaurs roamed the Earth as their kingdom 65 million years ago, we finally understood that man entered the timeline of Earth only a few 100,000 years ago. If you think that the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago, man appeared on it only a few 100,000 years ago. Before that, there were dinosaurs. And recently, traces of creatures that lived 280 million years ago, before the dinosaurs, have been discovered. So what kind of creatures lived before them? That is the million-dollar question. Because we only know about the traces of life from 500 million years ago, we don't know what happened on this Earth for the other 4 billion years. We don't even know if creatures more intelligent than us ever roamed this Earth. In exactly the same way, was there life on Mars 65 million years ago during the time of the dinosaurs on Earth? Research shows that there was water on Mars 3.5 billion years ago. So, compared to us, life on Mars should have originated in a much more ancient period. If life did originate there, what kind of life was it? Where did all the water on Mars go? Why did Mars suddenly become a desert planet like it is now? Many such questions arose for the scientists looking at Mars through their telescopes. That is why, by conducting research in an area where water once flowed on Mars, we can find out if there was really life there or not. But before that, scientists also had to determine whether there was actually water on Mars at all. Naturally, we can tell if water flowed in a place by observing the nature of the soil and the geographical conditions. More importantly, the marks left behind tell us that water once flowed there. When scientists observed the soil on Mars, they found clear evidence in one location that water had collected there. That place is called Jezero Crater. The marks found there indicate that it used to be an ancient delta region. That's why NASA landed the Perseverance Rover right there, believing that the truth of this mission would be revealed only by conducting research in that exact spot. The Jezero Crater is about 35 kilometers wide and 30 meters deep, which is 100 feet deep. Although we don't know how water came into it in the past, there are clues that tell us how it flowed. Primarily, it is understood that sand, mud, and soil were brought into it by the flow of ancient water. According to the map shown here, if this is all Jezero Crater, the area where water flowed into it is the delta region in blue. The water must have flowed into it from this area, and accordingly, there are river channels there. But our rover landed far from that area. From there, our rover has to travel to this delta region. During that journey, it has shown us the wonders of Mars in vivid detail. The photo you see here is not graphics. It's not a photo made with artificial intelligence. It's a photo of Mars taken by the Perseverance Rover itself with its high-quality cameras. Everything you see here, the soil on Mars, the rocks there, none of it is from our world. Yet it looks so similar to our Earth. But nobody might have imagined that beyond our sky there would be rocks and sand like this. Even though NASA sent the rover there and is taking pictures in such high quality, it feels incredibly amazing. Because rocks and soil belong to the Earth, they can never leave the Earth. Similarly, there are still people who believe that beyond the sky there are only clouds, emptiness, or heaven. Coming from such thoughts, to see rocks, soil, and sand in a world that is not ours, lying lifeless and motionless for millions of years, is truly wonderful. It gives as much joy as discovering another Earth-like planet in human space travel. Looking at it all, one might feel like we can go and live there. But Mars is not the Earth-like planet it appears to be. The red dust and sand you see here are filled with iron oxide, which is why it's called the Red Planet. A day here lasts 24 hours and 37 minutes, but it takes about 687 days for 1 year to pass. The conditions on Mars are extremely harsh because the atmosphere is filled with carbon dioxide and nitrogen. It looks like a desert planet, which might make you think it's scorching hot, but the highest temperature there is 20 degrees Celsius, while the lowest is minus 153 degrees Celsius. To put that in perspective, a room temperature on our Earth is between 20 and 22 degrees. Such a temperature is the highest ever recorded on Mars, so we can say Mars is a very cold planet. One reason for this is that Mars is very far from our Sun. Another is that the lack of a substantial atmosphere means that heat immediately escapes from the planet into space. Nevertheless, sandstorms still occur there from time to time, and because of them, the Martian dust completely fills the atmosphere. Those sandstorms cause so much destruction that the rock seen here looks strange, but the reason it looks this way is because when the winds on Mars blow fiercely, the sand causes some rocks to lose their shape and become hollow. In such conditions, it is difficult not only for humans, but also for machines to survive. Nevertheless, the Perseverance Rover landed on Mars as planned and is moving forward. On its journey, it photographs every scene it encounters on Mars and sends it to Earth. After landing in Jezero Crater and traveling up a hill, it learned many new things along the way, and even before that, it encountered strange rocks. The rocks seen here may look very ordinary, but they were all once carried by the flow of a river with water. They have been lying motionless here for 3.5 billion years. In between them, we can see the tracks of our rover's journey. In such a difficult area, the rover moved slowly, closely examining the rocks it saw, photographing them, and moving forward. However, the rover's job is not just to look at the Martian environment and show it to us. It has to take the soil, test it, and identify traces of ancient life to tell us. For that, this rover has to become a walking laboratory, and NASA built it just like that. NASA scientists know that there is nothing but sand and rocks on Mars, but it is just as difficult to find traces of life in that sand and rock. Nevertheless, NASA decided to drill into those very rocks to find life within them. For this purpose, it has fitted a drilling machine in the rover. With that drilling machine, it drills into rocks and takes the material inside. After our rover landed, it took its very first sample by drilling the rock seen here and stored the material in a tube. Here we can see the rover itself recorded how it drills on the rocks there and sent it to Earth. So far, it has drilled many rocks and collected samples from them. After collecting them, their marks are left behind on Mars like this. These marks are so special that if in the future humans go extinct without setting foot on Mars as planned, and Earth too becomes like Mars, then whenever extraterrestrials arrive from interstellar space, these marks will remain as clues about us and our technology. I am saying this because we know what great structures our ancestors built with rocks without any technology on Earth. In a way, we have to assume that the existence of our ancestors remains only in the form of these structures. But even those structures cannot exist for many years. With time, they too will be lost to the ages. Nevertheless, to show how our ancestors used to carve rocks, such marks can still be seen on some hills and rocks today. These marks represent the technology used by ancient people to separate rocks and tell us today how they worked. In a way, they appear as a mark of our ancestors' craftsmanship. We can create many such things now, but it was our ancestors who first thought of separating rocks in such a way. Now, man is creating such traces on Mars. The rover drills into Martian rocks, creating a chalk piece-sized core and stores it inside itself. Those samples contain the data we need. We know that the only remaining clues to find out whether life existed on Mars in the ancient past are these rocks. Only when the samples taken from such rocks reach Earth will our scientists be able to research and uncover the secrets within them. For that to happen, those samples must be kept safe with the rover. But one might wonder, how will they get to Earth if they just stay with the rover? For that too, NASA has a plan. NASA is developing another Mars mission to bring back the samples collected by the rover. In this mission, a lander will be sent from Earth to Mars. The lander will land right where the Perseverance Rover is. Then our rover will place all the collected samples into that lander. However, that lander will contain a small rocket. That rocket will blast off from Mars and travel to Earth. It sounds very simple to hear, but NASA cannot do this work as easily as it sounds. The technology for it still needs to be invented. Even NASA doesn't know when those samples will be brought to Earth, but this is the plan they have. It might take another 20 years, or the mission might fail. Our rover might go somewhere else and stop working. But we need those samples no matter what. That's why, for safety, our rover fills a tube with a part of the collected sample and leaves it on Mars. On December 21st, 2022, it collected its first sample and left one of them there. Later, on January 22nd, 2023, when it deposited the 10th sample, our rover took this selfie photo. This tube looks very small, so there is a chance it could be broken by the sandstorms on Mars. That's why it is made of titanium. It will protect the sample inside, whether during space travel or on Mars. In this photo, we can also see the samples our rover has left behind over the past few years. To create this photo, the Watson camera on our rover took about 59 photos and combined them. There is a reason for taking this photo so clearly. It is to make sure the titanium tube doesn't fall under the rover's wheels. Also, since it is a small tube, there is a chance it could roll away. That's why our rover looks for a flat surface and leaves it right there. After leaving it, it takes a photo and sends it to Earth. That is the photo we are looking at now. While some rocks show us that there is a chance of finding traces of life inside them, other rocks show us the changes that have happened on Mars over millions of years. Our rover has found such rocks. When we look at the rocks shown here, we might wonder what is so interesting there. But in that desolate planet, every rock we see shows us the history of Mars. That same history is present in the rocks here. On the rocks seen here, there are some marks in the form of ripples. The same marks are on all the rocks. However, the reason for the formation of these marks is the Martian weather cycles. That means, just like on Earth, Mars also has weather changes, meaning winter and summer also occur on Mars. However, according to the season, sand must have flowed like a river there, cutting through the rocks. Only then would such patterns have been formed. This is not all. The rocky hill seen here has been named Rocky Hill. In this rocky hill, we can see how the rocks have been eroded. Such rocks are mostly found in areas where rivers flow, because when water flows, the rocks are also eroded by the current. The appearance of such rocks on Mars is strong evidence that rivers once flowed there. Going a little further from there, it took a photo of an area formed with sedimentary rocks. Every rock seen here was once formed underwater with extremely fine sand particles. These are the rocks we need on Mars, because it is in these sedimentary rocks that fossils of ancient life are preserved. We know that dinosaurs lived on Earth 65 million years ago. Because their fossils were preserved in the Earth's layers, their existence was discovered in excavations after so many millions of years. But dinosaur fossils were not found in all areas. They were found only in some specific regions. Primarily, dinosaur fossils are found more in America. The reason for this is that in North America, there are many hills formed with sedimentary rock. Many dinosaur fossils have been found in them. Excavations for them are still ongoing. These sedimentary rocks are sometimes formed with the remains of living organisms. In such cases, by conducting research on them, we can discover new forms of life. That is why we can see here that our rover is drilling these rocks to take samples from them. It has drilled in 3 places, cut it in the size of a chalk piece, and collected its traces. We can also see here how the entire area is filled with such rocks. This is all evidence that stands to say that water once flowed here. This is a scene that tells us what it would be like if a lake or a river completely dried up and lay lifeless for millions of years. However, our rover did not just collect samples, it also made an amazing discovery there. On July 18, 2024, that is, after our rover had roamed there for 1,354 Martian days, it found an interesting rock. It identified that on that rock there were traces of ancient microorganisms. Primarily, it noticed that there were chemical substances called calcium sulfate on it. Calcium sulfate plays an important role in the survival of life. The leopard-like paw prints seen in the photo are all clues that say microorganisms lived there millions of years ago. Naturally, such marks are found on rocks on Earth, and in them, fossils of microorganisms are found. Now that such marks have appeared on Mars, the lonely journey our rover has been making all these days has found a purpose. However, a mineral called olivine was also found on that rock. This mineral is naturally found in asteroids in space. It is a rare mineral found on Earth. Its price is up to $45 per carat. The fact that an asteroid mineral from space and ancient microbial life on Mars are both in the same place has aroused the interest of scientists. Because our Earth knows well the destruction that happens when asteroids from space fall on a planet, we don't know how many living creatures were destroyed by it. The fact that there are traces of such an asteroid on Mars, and along with it, there are also traces of life, is definitely not a coincidence. There must be some strong reason behind it. The white rocky material seen here is completely filled with calcium sulfate. However, the interesting thing here is that the calcium sulfate there also signals that water flowed there in ancient times. So, what is the message that water, life, and asteroids together are trying to tell scientists? The Jezero crater area, where our rover has been searching for life until now, is not a naturally formed lake as we thought. It is a crater formed by the destruction caused by an asteroid that came from space. Perhaps life existed there before it was formed, and the life forms on Mars were destroyed in the destruction caused by the asteroid. Or, on the desolate Mars as it is now, after the destruction, water slowly came into the valley that was formed, and in it, life might have originated. Whatever the reasons, we can definitely say that there is some unknown relationship between life and Mars. When we go on any long journey, we know how carefully we prepare for everything. We think about the problems that might come up in advance and take the necessary things to solve them. Similarly, when NASA sends a rover to a planet where humans cannot go, it takes more care than us. That's why, along with our rover, it sent a small helicopter as a companion. This helicopter works wonderfully to warn our rover about the dangers on its path in advance. But the question is whether a helicopter can fly on Mars or not. For that, they recreated the 1% atmosphere of Mars compared to Earth and the 40% lower gravity on Mars right here. They tested it. As the scientists thought, they learned that a helicopter could fly on Mars. As planned, the helicopter named Ingenuity, which was sent there, took off for the first time on the planet Mars on April 19th, 2021, with its blades spinning. Those were wonderful moments for the scientists, because coming up with the idea of making a helicopter to fly on a planet that is millions of kilometers away from us is a great thing in itself. But they spent years of their lives making it with the doubt of whether it would work or not. So, after it went there, if it didn't even start as they thought, all their hard work would have been wasted in that desert sand. But they proved that if you work hard, you will definitely get the result, whether on Earth or on another planet. This is the first time in the history of our solar system that a helicopter made by man has flown on an alien planet. In fact, except on Mars, helicopters like ours cannot fly on any other planet. Because, except on Mars, no other planet has an atmosphere like ours. That's why the great idea of sending a helicopter there came to NASA, and they achieved it as planned. Now, this helicopter's job is not only to show the way to our rover, but also to see how the surface of Mars is from the sky and send pictures of it to Earth. As planned, it used to take pictures of the sand ripples on Mars and send them. Sometimes it would go far away from our rover and rest in the sand. In the photo we are looking at here, the helicopter is also there. Looking at it, it feels so peaceful on the sand dunes of Mars. Our helicopter has flown for 128 minutes on Mars so far. Not only that, it has traveled a distance of about 17 kilometers and has reached a height of 24 meters. It has already helped us to the best of its ability by flying 72 times in the air on Mars. But on January 18th, 2024, it took off into the air that day too, but it could not land as planned. Its blades suddenly broke into pieces, and it lost its power all at once. Nevertheless, it landed on the same sand dunes. But it sent a message to Earth that it could never fly on Mars again. It told us, showing the shadow of its broken blade, that it was going to stay in that sand forever. With that, our helicopter's journey came to an end. Our rover also took a photo of what happened to the helicopter it had carried in its belly. In that photo, it saw its broken blade lying far away. From there, our rover has to travel alone, so it moved on from that area. Since then, it has been traveling alone on Mars, taking samples where needed, and has reached the Delta region. It knows that on this journey, it has to climb steep hills as well. In the photo seen here, we can see how hard it has been climbing the steep area from a distance. That's probably why our rover also took a photo of the path it came from and sent it. Its journey is still ongoing. It will continue to travel on Mars until it gets tired. In the future, if humans go to Mars, they will definitely meet it. Because these are the lifeless rovers that sacrificed themselves before humans set foot on Mars. All the generations that will set foot on Mars will definitely remember this rover. With this, we conclude our rover's journey, and we'll meet again in another video. Thank you to everyone who supports our channel. If your support continues like this, I will bring more good videos to you. Thanks for watching.